The phone rang while I was watering my geraniums on the balcony of my Chicago apartment. It was Tuesday morning and the spring sun gently warmed my face. I answered without looking at the screen, assuming it would be Sarah, my little sister, with her usual weekly call. "Hello." "Mom, we need to talk." The voice of my son Ethan sounded tense with that tone he had perfected since he was a little boy, when he was about to disappoint me. I left the watering can on the balcony floor and sat down in my small wicker chair. At 62 years old, I had learned to recognize when bad news was coming. "What is wrong, honey?" There was a brief silence before he continued. "Chloe and I have been talking about the wedding." I felt my stomach tighten. My son's wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks from now on a beautiful beach in Malibu. I had been helping with the invitations, the floral arrangements, and I had even spent hours looking for the perfect gift. And well, she's very stressed about everything being perfect. You know how brides are. I knew exactly where this conversation was heading, but I let him dig his own grave. And the thing is, she does not feel comfortable with you there. She thinks your presence might make things awkward. 27 years. For 27 years, I had raised this boy all by myself after his father, Anthony, decided that fatherhood was not his thing when Ethan was barely 5 years old. I worked double shifts as a high school principal to pay for his college, his car, and the deposit for his first apartment. I had bitten my tongue for 2 years of passive-aggressive comments from Chloe about my outdated opinions and my old-fashioned cooking. "I see," I said calmly, even though my hand tightened around the phone. "And do you agree with this decision? Mom, please do not make this harder than it already is. It is only one day. We will have a nice dinner after we get back from our honeymoon." "Of course," I replied. "I understand perfectly." The relief in his voice was audible. "Really? Thank you, Mom. I knew you would be reasonable." After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen looking at the wedding invitation on my refrigerator. The elegant calligraphy announced that Chloe Foster and Ethan Morales would exchange vows at the Golden Beach Resort in Malibu next Saturday. The exact same invitation that I had helped Ethan send out because Chloe claimed that her carpal tunnel was bothering her. I took down the invitation, tore it in half, and threw it in the trash. Then I opened my laptop and started researching. You see, there is something my future daughter-in-law did not know about me. I might be 62 years old, but I have been on social media longer than she has. I taught at a high school for 30 years, which means I have dealt with spoiled teenagers and their drama for decades. Chloe Foster was about to learn that this old dog knew a few tricks she had never seen. But first, I needed to make a phone call. I called my sister Sarah at exactly 8 o'clock the next morning. Sarah has always been the rebel of the family, the one who never met a scheme she did not want to be a part of. "Ellen, what is wrong?" "You never call this early, unless someone is dead." "Not dead, just disowned. Ethan has uninvited me from his wedding." "He did what that little coward? After everything you have done for him?" I told her the whole story while she made appropriately indignant noises. Sarah is 2 years younger than me, but she acts like she is 20 years younger, which made her perfect for what I had in mind. "So, what is the plan?" she asked when I finished. "Because I know you have one. You have that calculating voice you used when the Miller boy tried to cheat on his final exams. I need you to do some reconnaissance for me. Chloe Foster, 28 years old, works at Foster Marketing downtown. I need to know everything about her daily routine." "Ellen Morales, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal, just gathering some information." There was a pause. "This is about more than the wedding, right?" She was right. For 2 years, I had watched how Chloe systematically isolated Ethan from his family and friends. She had convinced him that I was too critical and that his college friends were immature. Every holiday became a negotiation where Chloe's comfort came first. Every family dinner included subtle comments about my cooking, my house, my life choices. I had kept quiet because I did not want to lose my son. Apparently, I had lost him anyway. "Sarah, what would you say if I told you I have a video that might interest the wedding guests?" "I would say, Tell me more." On Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee at the Rose Cafe downtown. You know, the one with the outdoor seating. I was minding my own business when I saw Chloe meeting up with someone, a tall, dark-haired man. And it was not Ethan. "Oh, Ellen, please tell me it is not." I did not plan it, but when I saw her practically climbing into the lap of this stranger in broad daylight 2 days before her wedding, well, I thought someone should document it. The truth was that I had been following Chloe for 3 days. Something about her arrogant confidence when she answered Ethan's phone the night he called to uninvite me had bothered me deeply. Chloe was way too sure of herself, way too certain that she had won. I had learned a long time ago that people who are hiding something usually reveal it when they think nobody is watching. Do you have it on video? 47 minutes of Chloe Foster being very, very friendly with someone who is definitely not my son. Sarah laughed a sound that reminded me why we had been partners in crime during our teenage years. "What do you need me to do?" "Meet me at the downtown mall tomorrow. We are going shopping for the perfect wedding gift." That night, I could not sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, mentally reviewing the last 2 years. I remembered the first time Ethan brought Chloe home. He was glowing, introducing her as if he had discovered a hidden treasure. She was beautiful. There was no doubt about that, with her shiny black hair and hazel eyes. She worked at her family's marketing firm and had ambitions to expand internationally. She seemed perfect, but then the little comments started. First about my apartment. "It is so cozy." Then about my clothes. "My grandmother used to have a dress just like that." And finally, about my life. "It must be hard being so lonely at your age." Every comment came with a sweet smile and a knowing look toward Ethan, as if they were sharing a private joke at my expense. Gradually, Ethan's visits became less frequent. His phone calls got shorter. His lifelong friends started disappearing from his life one by one. He even left his job at an architecture firm he loved to join Chloe's family business, where she could guide his career. I rolled over and looked at the clock. 3:14 in the morning. In a few short weeks, my son would marry a woman who was separating him from everything he loved, and I would not even be there to see it. But did I really want to be there to watch my son make possibly the biggest mistake of his life? No. I decided as the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains that this was not how this story was supposed to end. I got up and brewed myself a strong cup of coffee. If I was going to do this, I needed to be completely sure of my motives. Was I acting out of spite because I had been excluded from the wedding? Or was there something much bigger at stake? I pulled out my old photo album and turned the pages slowly. Ethan as a baby, sleeping in my arms. Ethan at 5 years old, his eyes full of tears after his father walked out. Ethan at 12, looking proud with his first place science fair ribbon. Ethan at 18 in his high school graduation cap and gown, his eyes shining with endless possibilities. This was my son, the boy to whom I had dedicated my entire life. And something inside of me, a maternal instinct that I simply could not ignore, told me he was in danger. It was not revenge that motivated me. It was protection. The kind of fierce protection that only a mother can truly understand. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked after listening to me. "It is not just about the wedding, Sarah. There is something wrong with this relationship. I have felt it for months. Ethan is not the same since he has been with her. It is as if he is slowly fading away. And you think following her will give you answers? I do not know, but I have to try. If I am wrong, if everything is perfectly normal and she just cannot stand me, then I will step back and let them be happy. But my gut tells me there is more to this story." "Well," Sarah sighed, "I have always trusted your instincts. I am with you on this." And just like that, I made my first real decision. I would not sit idly by and watch my son marry someone who might be deceiving him. I would seek out the truth, even if that meant crossing a few lines I never thought I would cross. On Thursday morning, Sarah and I met at the entrance of the office building where Chloe worked. Foster Marketing occupied 3 floors in a sleek glass building in the downtown financial district of Chicago. From our bench in the plaza across from the building, we had a perfect view of the main entrance. According to what they told me at the reception desk yesterday, Sarah said while we shared a to-go coffee, Chloe goes out for lunch at exactly 12:15 every single day and returns at 1:30. How did you get that information? Sarah smiled. I said I was an old college friend who wanted to surprise her for her wedding. At 12:13, the glass doors opened and Chloe walked out accompanied by 2 other young women. They were all wearing elegant power suits and high heels. Chloe was laughing at something one of them had said, her head thrown back with reckless abandon. We followed her from a safe distance to a trendy restaurant 2 blocks away. Through the windows, we could see her sitting with her friends, drinking white wine with her salad and gesturing animatedly. She looks perfectly normal, Sarah muttered. Just wait, I replied discreetly, pulling out my phone. At 1:05, Chloe excused herself from the table and left the restaurant. Instead of heading back to the office, she turned in the opposite direction and walked briskly down the sidewalk. We followed her at a cautious distance as she headed toward a boutique gym called Elite Fitness. She goes to the gym during her lunch hour, Sarah whispered. In 4-inch heels and without a gym bag, I observed. Chloe walked into the gym and we waited a few minutes before approaching. Through the glass windows, we could see her talking to the man at the front desk, who smiled and pointed toward a back door. She nodded, checked her watch, and quickly exited through the front door. Strange, I muttered. Maybe she is just setting up a membership, Sarah suggested. Maybe. We followed Chloe back to her office where she walked in at exactly 1:30, punctual as a clock. Now what? Sarah asked. Now we investigate Elite Fitness. We spent the next afternoon looking into the gym. It turned out that the owner was a guy named Mark Vance, a former Olympic athlete who had parlayed his success into a chain of exclusive fitness centers. A quick search on social media revealed that he was married to Rachel Vance, an interior designer, and they had 2 small children. He is handsome, Sarah commented, looking at his profile picture. And married, I reminded her. Do you think Chloe and him? I do not know, but we are going to find out. We were discussing our next move when my phone rang. It was Ethan. Hello, son, I answered, trying to keep my voice casual. Mom, are you free tonight? I would like to stop by your place. My heart skipped a beat. Of course. Is everything okay? Yes, I just want to talk to you. I will be there around 7. Does that work for you? Perfect. I will be waiting for you. After hanging up, I looked at Sarah. Ethan is coming over tonight. Do you think he changed his mind about the wedding? I do not know, but I am going to have to be very careful with what I say. Ethan arrived at 7 o'clock on the dot with a bottle of my favorite wine. He walked into my apartment with a tense smile and headed straight to the kitchen where we had held every serious conversation of his life. I brought you your favorite wine, he said, placing the bottle on the counter. Bribery wine. This must be serious. He had the decency to look embarrassed. I know yesterday was hard. I am sure Chloe feels terrible about how things turned out. The thing is, her family is very formal. They have these traditions about wedding entourages and guest lists. Her grandmother is very traditional about these things. Each lie slipped out easier than the last. I had met Chloe's grandmother exactly 1 time. A lovely woman who had told me she was thrilled that Chloe had found someone with such a wonderful mother. Apparently, that conversation had never reached Chloe's ears. Ethan, sit down. He perched on the bar stool like a guilty teenager. Mom, please do not make this about you. It is her special day. You are right. It is her day, and I want it to be perfect for both of you. Relief washed over his face. Really? You are not angry. I reached across the counter and squeezed his hand. The exact same hand I had held through countless doctor visits, school events, and broken hearts. Honey, I just want you to be happy. That is all I have ever wanted. I love you, Mom. You know that, right? I know. After he left, I just stared at the unopened bottle of wine. There was something about the ease with which Ethan had repeated Chloe's excuses that unsettled me deeply. It was as if he were reciting a script that she had written. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "How did it go with Ethan?" "Confirmed. Something is not right," I replied. "Tomorrow we are going back to the gym." On Friday morning, Sarah and I set up camp in a coffee shop with a perfect view of elite fitness. We ordered coffee and pastries, pretending to be two older ladies enjoying a morning chat. "Are you sure she is coming today?" Sarah asked, checking her watch. "No, but it is our best lead so far." At 11:30, a black Mercedes pulled up in front of the gym. Mark Vance stepped out of the driver's seat, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit. He looked around casually before walking into the building. "There is our guy," Sarah mumbled. "Now we wait." At 12:15 on the dot, like a Swiss watch, Chloe appeared walking down the sidewalk. Today she was wearing a tight red dress and high heels that probably cost more than my monthly pension. She stopped in front of the gym, checked her phone, and went inside. "Let's go," I said, leaving cash for the bill. We discreetly approached the gym and positioned ourselves near a side window that offered a partial view of the front desk. Chloe was talking to the receptionist, who smiled and pointed toward the back office. She nodded, fixed her hair, and walked in that direction. "We need to see what is happening in that office," I whispered. Sarah looked at me in surprise. "What do you propose that we walk in, pretending to be potential clients?" I was about to answer when I saw something that took my breath away. Through the office window, now visible from our angle, I could see Chloe hugging Mark. It was not the casual hug between a personal trainer and his client. Her arms were wrapped around his neck, her body pressed tightly against his. And their lips were locked. "Oh my God!" Sarah gasped, following my gaze. I quickly pulled out my phone and hit record. The angle was not perfect, but it was clear enough to see exactly what was happening. Chloe, my son's future wife, was passionately kissing another man just 3 weeks before her wedding. "Ellen," Sarah whispered, "what are we going to do with this?" "First, we need more information," I replied, never stopping the recording. "We need to know how long this has been going on and if Ethan has any clue. What if someone sees us? We are just two older ladies taking pictures of modern architecture. Nobody suspects the grandmas." After a few minutes, Chloe and Mark stepped out of the office. He handed her what appeared to be a key, and she tucked it into her purse with a knowing smile. They kissed one more time before she checked her watch and hurried out the front door. "You follow her," I told Sarah. "I will stay on him." Sarah nodded and discreetly trailed Chloe down the sidewalk. I held my position, watching through the window as Mark returned to his desk with a smug smile on his face. He made a couple of phone calls, checked his watch, and then grabbed his keys. I tailed him at a safe distance as he left the gym and walked 3 blocks to a small diner. He walked in and joined an attractive woman and 2 small children at a booth. His family, I assumed. He kissed his wife on the cheek and ruffled his kid's hair as if he had not just been in the arms of another woman. My phone vibrated with a text from Sarah. I followed her back to her office. "Nothing unusual. What did you find out?" "Our friend Mark is having lunch with his family as if nothing happened. Husband of the Year award. Meet me at your apartment at 5 o'clock. We have a lot to discuss." That afternoon, Sarah and I sat in my living room reviewing the evidence we had collected. The video clearly showed Chloe and Mark making out in the gym office. "So she is cheating on Ethan," Sarah said. "The question is, since when? And more importantly, what do we do with this information?" Sarah looked at me dead serious. "Ellen, are you absolutely sure you want to get involved in this? Once you show this to Ethan, there is no turning back. He might thank you, or he might pull away even further." I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the city sprawling before me. Chicago at sunset was beautiful, with the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in that city, my son was planning his future with a woman who was lying right to his face. What kind of mother would I be if I let my son get married without knowing the truth? I finally asked. I cannot just sit back and watch him ruin his life. Then Sarah stood up and joined me at the window. Tomorrow we tail Mark. Let's see where he goes with that key. Saturday dawned clear and bright. A perfect day for a beach wedding. Of course, Ethan and Chloe's wedding was still 3 weeks away, but I could not help the irony as Sarah and I geared up for another day of surveillance. "Are you sure they will show up today?" Sarah asked while adjusting her sunglasses. "It is Saturday. If they are having an affair, the weekend is the perfect time, especially for two people who are supposedly busy doing other things." We settled into a rental car parked across from Elite Fitness. According to the website, Mark taught a special training class on Saturdays at 10 in the morning. At 9:45, Mark's black Mercedes parked in front of the gym. He stepped out dressed in workout gear, waving at a few arriving clients. "He seems to be a legitimate trainer, at least," Sarah commented. "The best liars always have a solid alibi." We waited patiently as the 10 o'clock class started and finished. At 11:30, the clients began to filter out, but Mark stayed inside. At 11:45, a cab pulled up to the gym and Chloe stepped out dressed in casual clothes and oversized sunglasses. She glanced around before quickly ducking into the building. "Bingo," I whispered, getting my phone ready to record. 15 minutes later, Mark and Chloe walked out together. He was carrying a small gym duffel bag, and she had swapped her sunglasses for a wide-brimmed hat. They hopped into Mark's Mercedes and drove off. "Follow them," I said as I started our rental car, "but keep your distance." The Mercedes led us right through downtown Chicago and into the Lincoln Park neighborhood. They pulled over in front of an old restored apartment building. "Apartment 3B," Sarah mumbled, watching as Chloe pulled a key from her purse and unlocked the building's front door. We waited until they disappeared inside, then we walked up to the building. The directory in the lobby showed that apartment 3B was registered under the name M. Smith. An alias, Sarah guessed, or his mother's maiden name. Very creative. We sat at a coffee shop right across the street where we had a clear view of the building's entrance. I ordered 2 coffees and a plate of donuts while Sarah kept her eyes glued to the door. "How long do you think they will be in there?" she asked. "Long enough," I replied, feeling a mix of sadness and pure determination. Long enough to break my son's heart. As we waited, I found myself battling growing doubts. Was I doing the right thing, or was I crossing a line I had no business crossing? "Sarah," I finally said, "do you think I am wrong for doing this, for spying on my son's fiancé?" My sister looked at me with absolute seriousness. "If you were doing this because you are jealous or because you want to control Ethan's life, then yes, it would be wrong. But you are doing this because you have hard proof that this woman is cheating on your son just weeks before his wedding. That is not meddling. That is protecting someone you love from terrible harm. What if Ethan does not believe me? What if he chooses to believe her instead of me? That is a risk you will have to take. But ask yourself this: if the roles were reversed, if someone knew that Ethan was being played and they did not tell you, how would you feel?" I sighed, knowing she was right. I would feel betrayed, not just by Chloe, but by the person who kept their mouth shut. Exactly. Sometimes the most important truths are the hardest ones to say. 2 hours and 45 minutes later, Mark and Chloe walked out of the building. He kissed her passionately before she hopped into a cab. Mark went back to his car and drove off in the opposite direction. "Now what?" Sarah asked as she paid the bill. "Now we have enough proof. It is time to figure out how to use it." Back at my apartment, I uploaded the videos to my computer and started organizing them chronologically. We had footage of Chloe and Mark making out at the gym, walking into the apartment together, and leaving hours later. It was undeniable what was happening. "You could just show them to Ethan," Sarah suggested, "a private mother-to-son conversation. And if he does not believe me, Chloe could convince him that the videos are doctored or taken out of context. She has already made him believe I am a meddler. So what do you suggest?" I stared blankly at the computer screen where a frozen frame showed Chloe kissing Mark, right outside the apartment building, my future daughter-in-law, the woman who had convinced my son that I did not deserve a seat at his wedding. "I need to think," I finally said. "I need to be absolutely sure that whatever I do is for Ethan's own good, not for revenge." That night after Sarah left, I sat on my balcony staring up at the stars over Chicago. In 3 weeks, my son would marry a woman who was cheating on him. A woman who had pushed him away from his family and friends. A woman who I suspected had plans that Ethan did not even know about. My phone chimed with a text from Ethan. "Good night, Mom. I love you." Tears filled my eyes as I texted back, "I love you more, my boy, always." In that exact moment, I knew I would do whatever it took to protect my son, even if it meant risking our relationship, even if it meant becoming someone I never thought I would be. Because sometimes a mother's love is not soft and comforting. Sometimes it is fierce and downright dangerous, and Chloe Foster was about to find out exactly how dangerous it could be. On Sunday morning, Sarah showed up at my apartment with coffee and bagels ready for our next phase of investigation. "I have been thinking," she said as she spread some papers across my table. "We should find out more about this Mark guy. Maybe this is not the first time he has done this. Though, what do you propose?" "I have a friend who works in human resources. I could ask her a few discreet questions about him." I nodded, scrolling through the pictures we had snapped the day before. "We should also dig deeper into Chloe. What do we actually know about her besides what Ethan has told us?" Sarah grabbed her tablet and started typing. "Chloe Foster, 28 years old, marketing graduate from Northwestern University. She works at the family business Foster Marketing, where she is the director of international accounts. Anything on her family?" "Her father, George Foster, founded the company 25 years ago. Her mother, Lucy, is an interior designer. She has a younger brother, Dan, who also works at the firm." "A perfect family for a perfect bride," I murmured. "Wait, this is interesting," Sarah said, leaning closer to the screen. 3 weeks ago, Foster Marketing announced the opening of a brand new office in Seattle. And guess who is in the announcement photo cutting the ribbon? She showed me the picture. George Foster with his daughter, Chloe. Both of them grinning from ear to ear in front of a sleek office building. Seattle. I repeated, feeling a massive puzzle piece snap into place. "Do you think she is planning to move out there after the wedding?" Without even consulting Ethan. I would bet my life on it. We spent the entire morning gathering every possible piece of information about Chloe Foster and her family. We discovered that her company was rapidly expanding with new offices planned not just in Seattle, but also in Austin and Boston, a massive nationwide expansion that would require trusted personnel at every location. "Ellen, look at this," Sarah said, shoving her phone toward me. It was an Instagram post from Chloe from 2 weeks ago. She was posing in front of the Space Needle in Seattle with the caption, "Soon my new home." "Ethan has not mentioned a single word about moving to Seattle," I said, feeling my heart start to race. "Do you think he knows?" I highly doubt it. By mid-afternoon, we decided to head back to the apartment in Lincoln Park. If Chloe and Mark were having a regular affair, there was a chance they might meet up again, especially on a quiet Sunday. We set up camp at the same coffee shop across from the building, ordering tea and muffins while keeping one eye on the entrance. At 4:15, our hard work paid off when Mark's Mercedes pulled up to the building. "There he is," Sarah whispered. Mark got out of the car wearing casual clothes, looked around discreetly, and walked inside. 20 minutes later, a cab pulled up and Chloe stepped out looking absolutely stunning in a sundress and oversized sunglasses. "It is unbelievable," I muttered discreetly, snapping photos with my phone. "They are not even trying to be discreet. Why would they? Nobody is watching them. Or so they think." We watched the building for the next 2 hours, meticulously documenting their arrival time and any visible movement through those third-floor windows. At 6:45, my phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Mom, can we meet up for lunch tomorrow? I need to talk to you about some wedding details." I felt my stomach tie itself into a knot. What details could he possibly want to discuss when he had already banned me from the ceremony? "Of course, sweetheart," I replied. "At 1 o'clock at the Capitol Grill." "Perfect, I love you." "I love you too." Sarah looked at me with genuine concern. "Is everything okay?" "Ethan wants to get lunch tomorrow to talk about the wedding. Do you think he changed his mind?" "I doubt it. Chloe probably just wants to make sure I fully understand that I am not welcome." At 7:30, Mark and Chloe walked out of the building together. He kissed her passionately before she slid into a cab. I captured the whole thing on my phone, feeling a toxic mix of sorrow and pure determination. As Chloe's cab drove away, I decided to take a huge risk. "Wait for me right here," I told Sarah, and I crossed the street toward where Mark was just about to get into his car. "Excuse me," I called out to him, putting on my absolute best lost grandma expression. "Could you help me? I'm looking for Michigan Avenue, and I think I'm terribly lost." Mark turned toward me, clearly annoyed by the interruption, but he quickly arranged his face into a polite smile. Up close, I could see exactly why Chloe was drawn to him. He was extraordinarily handsome, with piercing blue eyes and a chiseled jawline. "That is pretty far from here, ma'am," he replied, pointing vaguely toward the east. "You would need to take the subway or grab a cab." "Oh, what a shame. My granddaughter is waiting for me at a restaurant over there. Do you know any good places to eat around here? Maybe I can call her to come meet me." "I am sorry I am not from this neighborhood," he replied, clearly eager to get away. "I only come down here occasionally to visit a friend." "I understand." I smiled, noticing exactly how he tensed up at the lie. "Thank you anyway. You have a wonderful day." When I made it back to the coffee shop, Sarah was staring at me with wide eyes. "I cannot believe you just did that. What if he had recognized you?" "He has never laid eyes on me before," I replied, sitting down. "And now I have seen him. Now it is real." Back at my apartment that night, Sarah and I went over every single piece of evidence we had collected. We had photos, videos, and now solid information about Chloe's secret plans for Seattle. "I think we have enough," Sarah said finally. "The big question is, what are you going to do with all of this?" I sat in total silence, weighing my options. I could show the proof directly to Ethan and risk him calling me a liar. I could confront Chloe face to face and risk her twisting the whole narrative. Or I could find another way, a way that made it completely impossible to deny the ugly truth. "I need to think," I finally said. "I am having lunch with Ethan tomorrow. Let's see what he has to say." On Monday, I woke up early feeling a heavy weight in my chest that I had not felt since Ethan was a rebellious teenager staying out all night while I had no idea where he was. That maternal anxiety, the monster that never really sleeps, was wide awake. I dressed carefully for lunch, picking out a navy blue dress that Ethan always loved. I wanted to look nice, but not too dressed up. I wanted my son to see me exactly for who I was. His mother, the woman who would gladly lay down her life for him, not the meddlesome witch that Chloe had painted me to be. I arrived at the Capitol Grill 15 minutes early, asking the host for a quiet table tucked away in the corner. The restaurant was a Chicago classic, famous for its dry-aged steaks and its elite clientele. Ethan had picked it out himself, which genuinely surprised me since he had always gravitated toward trendier, less traditional spots. At 1:05, Ethan walked through the doors. He looked incredibly handsome in his tailored suit, but I immediately noticed the dark circles under his eyes. He was not sleeping well. "Mom," he greeted me, kissing my cheek. "You look beautiful." "And you look exhausted," I replied, completely unable to help myself. "Are you getting any sleep?" Ethan offered a weak smile. "There is just so much to do before the wedding, and Chloe is... well, you know how brides get." We sat down and ordered our food, slipping easily into our usual comfort. For a fleeting moment, it felt like nothing had changed. Like we were just a mother and son grabbing lunch, like a million times before. "So," I finally asked, "what did you want to talk about?" Ethan fiddled with his napkin, a nervous little tic he had kept since childhood. "Look, Mom, I have been thinking about what happened last week." About the wedding. My heart skipped a beat. Was he actually reconsidering his choice? And I wanted to make sure you fully understood that it is not personal at all. Chloe really does care for you. It is just that her family has certain strict traditions and high expectations. Ethan, I interrupted him softly, you do not have to explain it all over again. I get it. He looked visibly relieved, which broke my heart into even smaller pieces. Thank you for being so understanding. Chloe really thought you might cause a scene. Chloe thought so. And what do you think, Ethan? The direct question clearly caught him off guard. Of course I want you there, Mom. You are my mother. But I also have to respect Chloe's wishes. She is going to be my wife. And I will always be your mother, I said, reaching for his hand. Absolutely nothing will ever change that. We ate our lunch in total silence for a few minutes, both of us lost in our own tangled thoughts. Finally, I decided to take a calculated risk. Have you been out to Seattle recently? I asked casually. Ethan looked up in surprise. No, why do you ask? I just figured that with Chloe's company expanding out there, you might have gone to visit the area. Expansion? I do not know anything about that. I faked a look of pure shock. Oh, I am so sorry. I assumed you knew. I saw something in the business news about Foster Marketing opening up a huge branch in Seattle. Ethan furrowed his brow. Chloe has not mentioned a single word about that. Maybe she just wanted to surprise you. I suggested, hating myself just a little bit for planting the seed of doubt, but knowing it was absolutely necessary. Have you thought about what your daily life will look like after the wedding? Where will you two live? In our current apartment, I guess. We have never even discussed moving. I simply nodded, deciding not to push my luck any further. The seed had been firmly planted. Now I just needed to watch it sprout. After we finished our dessert, Ethan checked his watch. I have to get back to the office. Do you mind if I run? Of course not, sweetie. Go ahead. He stood up to leave, but hesitated at the edge of the table. Mom, there is one more thing I wanted to ask you. Yes, Chloe says we really should sign a prenuptial agreement. Her dad is pushing for it because of the family business. Do you think that is normal? I felt my heart shrink at the raw uncertainty in his voice. My boy. So incredibly brilliant in so many aspects of life, yet completely blind when it came to Chloe. It is actually fairly common in families with large assets, I answered very carefully. But you need to make absolutely sure that a lawyer reviews every single document before you put your name on it. Your own lawyer, not her family's lawyer. Ethan nodded, looking visibly uncomfortable. Yes, of course. It is just a formality, really. Ethan, I said, standing up to wrap him in a hug. I just want you to be happy. That is all I have ever wanted for you in this world. I know, Mom, he replied, hugging me back tightly. I know. After he walked out, I stayed at the restaurant ordering an espresso and reflecting on our entire conversation. Ethan was completely clueless about Seattle. He had no idea that his future wife was busy planning a brand new life without even consulting him, and he certainly had no idea she was sleeping with another man. My phone dinged with a text from Sarah. How did the lunch go? Worse than I expected, I typed back. We need to act fast. I decided to take a little trip down to the Golden Beach Resort in Malibu where the wedding was being held. If I was going to make a final call on how to proceed, I needed to see the venue with my own eyes to understand exactly what Chloe was putting together for the biggest day of my son's life. I booked a quick flight to Southern California that very afternoon, arriving at the resort just before 5 o'clock. It was a genuinely breathtaking place, a luxury complex sitting right on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, featuring lush gardens and panoramic views of the turquoise water. I walked right up to the front desk with my warmest smile. Good afternoon. I am here to check out the facilities for the Foster and Morales wedding happening next month. The concierge smiled warmly. Right this way, ma'am. Are you with the bride's family or the groom's? The groom. I am Ellen Morales, the groom's mother. Ah, Mrs. Morales. Miss Foster actually mentioned that you would be coming by for an inspection. Please let me show you the grounds. My shock must have been painted clearly on my face because the concierge quickly added to his statement. Or would you rather wait for Miss Foster to arrive? She mentioned she would be meeting you here shortly. No, I replied quickly, collecting myself. Please show me everything. I want to make absolutely sure my son has a perfect day. Over the course of the next hour, I toured the manicured gardens where the ceremony would happen, the grand ballroom booked for the reception, and even the bridal suites where the couple and their closest guests would get ready. The concierge was exceptionally helpful, completely unaware that I was never supposed to set foot on the property, according to Chloe's strict demands. As we were strolling down a hallway toward the main bridal suite, I heard female voices drifting through a cracked door. I just need to double-check the measurements one last time, an unfamiliar woman was saying. We do not want any last-minute surprises with the dress. Trust me, I have checked it 3 separate times, replied a voice I instantly recognized as Chloe's. Everything is going to be flawless. I froze in my tracks, giving the concierge a quick hand gesture to stay completely quiet. He nodded politely, assuming I just did not want to interrupt the fitting. Is your future mother-in-law coming to the dress fitting? The first woman asked. Chloe let out a nasty, dismissive laugh. Ellen, God, no. Thank goodness I finally convinced Ethan to ban her from the wedding entirely. Imagine having to deal with that woman the entire day. My chest tightened painfully as I heard the raw venom in her tone. Was it hard to convince him? The woman asked. Chloe responded with a level of arrogant confidence that turned my blood to ice. He always caves. The man is completely wrapped around my finger. Both women giggled, and I felt my cheeks flush hot with pure indignation. The concierge, noticing my sudden discomfort, gently touched my arm. Mrs. Morales, are you all right? Yes, I whispered back. I am just a little overwhelmed by all of this. Could we please continue the tour in the other direction? We quietly walked away, but not before I caught one final devastating exchange. By the way, the unknown woman asked, does Ethan know about the Seattle move yet? I will drop the news after we get back from the honeymoon, Chloe answered smoothly. They offered me the director position for the new branch, and honestly, it is the absolute perfect excuse to drag him away from all his baggage. His friends are incredibly immature, and his mother is just clingy and pathetic. And if he refuses to move, Chloe let out a chilling laugh. He will do exactly what I tell him to do. He always does. I walked out of that resort feeling physically sick to my stomach. Not only was Chloe cheating on Ethan with another man, but she was actively planning to control his entire existence, isolate him from his family and friends, and force him into a cross-country move without even asking. On the flight back to Chicago, I made a concrete decision. This was no longer just a story about an unfaithful bride. This was about my own son, whose entire life was about to be hijacked by someone who did not respect him or value his autonomy as a human being. Sarah was absolutely right. I needed to act. The very next day, Sarah and I regrouped at my apartment to weigh our options. I told her every single horrifying detail of what I had overheard at the resort. This is so much worse than we thought, she said, shaking her head in utter disgust. Not only is she sleeping around, but she plans to micromanage every aspect of his life and use her promotion to completely isolate him from anyone who might show him the truth. I added, myself included. We sat in heavy silence, digesting the sheer gravity of the situation. We could literally just hand Ethan the evidence, Sarah suggested. Show him the pictures, the videos, and tell him exactly what you heard. And what if he refuses to believe me? Chloe has spent 2 whole years convincing him that I am a controlling, outdated mother. He might think I fabricated this entire scheme just because I am bitter about being banned from the wedding. What about confronting Chloe face to face, show her that we know exactly what she is doing, and threaten to expose her unless she calls off the engagement herself? I actually chewed on that option for a minute. It is way too risky. She could easily get ahead of the story and spin her own toxic version to Ethan before we ever get a chance to speak to him. Or even worse, she might hit the gas pedal on her plans to drag him away. So what exactly do we do? I got up and paced over to the window, watching the hustle and bustle of Chicago down below. Somewhere out in that massive city, my son was eagerly planning a future with a woman who viewed him as nothing more than a spineless puppet. A woman who was proudly making a fool out of him before they even tied the knot. "We need bulletproof evidence," I declared firmly. "Something Chloe cannot possibly deny or explain away, and we need Ethan to discover it all on his own, not through me." Sarah looked at me with deep curiosity. "What exactly do you have in mind?" I turned back toward her, a brilliant plan forming perfectly in my mind. "Do you remember Emily Davis, your old colleague from the high school, the one who retired last year? Know the totally fictitious wedding photographer we are about to create?" Sarah blinked in absolute shock. Then a slow, wicked smile spread across her face. "Ellen Morales, you are an absolute genius. And honestly, a little terrifying." We spent the next few hours crafting an elaborate online profile for Emily Davis, a highly respected wedding photographer with a deep passion for capturing authentic moments and a firm belief in marital honesty. We built her profiles on Instagram, Facebook, and even a simple website, loading them up with stock images and completely fabricated glowing testimonials. "This is completely insane," Sarah mumbled as we uploaded generic wedding photos pulled straight from free stock websites. "Do you seriously think this is going to work?" "People believe whatever they see on social media," I replied. "Emily Davis is exactly as real as we need her to be." The next step was much trickier, deciding exactly how to deploy our mountain of evidence. After hours of debate, we decided to put together a short documentary about the ugly truth hiding behind the perfect wedding. We would edit together the clips of Chloe and Mark, the audio recordings of her nasty comments about Ethan, and the shocking revelation of her secret relocation to Seattle. "When do we hit publish on this?" Sarah asked while organizing the digital files on my laptop. "On the day of the wedding," I answered, "when it is far too late for Chloe to control the narrative. Ellen, this will absolutely destroy their wedding. It will humiliate Ethan in front of everyone." I paused heavily, weighing the real consequences of our actions. Was I letting my own resentment completely cloud my judgment? Was I truly acting in Ethan's absolute best interest? "You are right," I finally admitted. "This is not about petty revenge or public humiliation. This is purely about protecting my son from someone who is actively hurting him." We drastically revised our plan. Instead of a massive public spectacle, we would edit a private video and send it directly to Ethan's phone on the exact night before the wedding. We would give him the opportunity to confront Chloe behind closed doors, allowing him to make his own choice without the crushing pressure of 100 guests waiting or social media vultures watching. "It is the right thing to do," Sarah said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. "You are handing him the cold facts he needs to make an informed decision while still respecting his autonomy as a grown man." Just as we were piecing the final video together, my phone rang. It was Ethan. "Mom?" His voice sounded extremely strange, pulled tight with tension. "Can I come over to your house tonight? I need to talk to you." "Of course, honey." "Is everything okay?" There was a pause. "I do not know. I need your advice." "Come over whenever you want. I will be here." After hanging up, I looked at Sarah with concern. "Something has happened. Do you think he knows about Chloe?" "I do not know, but something is definitely not right." Sarah stood up, gathering her things. "Talk to him first. Find out what is going on. Then we will decide how to proceed." Ethan arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, looking exhausted and worried. I offered him a glass of wine, which he accepted gratefully, and we sat on the couch. "What is wrong, honey?" I asked, resisting the urge to hug him like when he was a little boy. It is Chloe. He began confirming my suspicions. After our lunch yesterday, I asked her about the Chicago office. She acted strange. Strange how... First, she denied that there were any plans for an office out there. When I showed her the article I found online, she said it was just a preliminary project. But then I found an email on her laptop. It was open. I was not snooping, he added quickly. It was from her father talking about her transfer to Chicago right after the honeymoon. My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. What did she say when you asked her about it? She got mad. She said it was a surprise that she had planned to tell me after the wedding that it was a great opportunity for both of us. And what do you think about moving to Chicago? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration that I knew well. I do not want to move to Chicago, Mom. I like my job here. My friends are here. You are here. Did you tell her that? I tried. But somehow the conversation turned into how I was ruining her surprise, about how I am always putting obstacles in her way. In the end, I apologized for finding the email. I felt a wave of frustration. Ethan had always been like this ever since he was a kid, so eager to please, so willing to take the blame just to keep the peace. Ethan, honey, listen to me, I said, taking his hands. A decision like moving to another city is not something your partner should decide unilaterally and present to you as a done deal. It is something you should discuss together, weigh the pros and cons, and decide as a team. I know, he sighed. It is just that when Chloe makes up her mind about something, it is very hard to change it. And is that how you want your marriage to be, with Chloe making all the major decisions and you just nodding along? Ethan looked at me surprised, as if he had never considered the situation from that perspective. No, of course not. But it is complicated, Mom. I love her. Love should not mean losing your voice, Ethan. True love involves mutual respect, open communication, and making decisions together. He stayed silent, contemplating my words. Finally, he spoke in a low voice. There is something else. What? The prenuptial agreement I mentioned. I reviewed it with my lawyer today. It includes clauses that would basically leave me with nothing if we ever got divorced. And there is a specific one about following your spouse for professional reasons. If I refused to move to Chicago and that caused our separation, I would lose all rights to any compensation. My blood boiled at the audacity of Chloe and her family. They were legally making sure that Ethan had no other choice but to follow Chloe wherever she decided to go. What did your lawyer say? I could not help a small smile. At least someone was being straight with him. And you, what do you think? Ethan took a deep breath. I do not know, Mom. Everything is happening so fast. The wedding is in less than 3 weeks. We have sent the invitations, paid the deposits. And I really love Chloe. I bit my tongue so I would not spill everything right then and there. I needed Ethan to reach his own conclusions, not push him toward mine. Ethan, I love you more than anything in this world. I just want you to be happy. But real lasting happiness does not come from accepting conditions that make you uncomfortable or from silencing your own desires. It comes from honest, respectful, and equal relationships. He nodded slowly, absorbing my words. I need to think. Talk to Chloe again. See if we can figure this out. Of course, I said, hugging him. Take all the time you need. I will be here no matter what happens. After Ethan left, I sat in silence in my living room, reflecting on our conversation. On one hand, I felt relieved that he was starting to see the problems in his relationship. On the other, I worried that the love and the commitment already in place might blind him to the warning signs. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. How did everything go with Ethan? He found out about Chicago and there is a manipulative prenuptial agreement. He is starting to see the truth, but he is not ready to act yet. Are we still going ahead with the video plan? I considered the question carefully. If Ethan was already having doubts, would it be cruel to push him to face Chloe's infidelity right now? Or would it be crueler to let him get married without knowing the whole truth? Yes, I finally replied. We are sticking to the plan. Ethan deserves to know the whole truth before making such a massive decision. The next 2 weeks went by in a blur of activity. Sarah and I continued monitoring Chloe and Michael, documenting every encounter, every single lie. We saw them meet up at the apartment at least 2 more times, and on one occasion we caught Chloe kissing Michael in the gym parking lot, completely careless about who might see them. Meanwhile, Ethan seemed more and more stressed and distant. Our phone conversations were brief, and whenever he mentioned the wedding, his voice lacked the excitement a groom should have just days away from his marriage. Finally, the eve of the wedding arrived. The Golden Beach Resort would be packed with guests, most of them already checked in for the ceremony the next day. Ethan and Chloe would spend the night apart following tradition. Sarah and I sat in my apartment putting the finishing touches on the video I had been preparing for weeks. It was concise, but devastating. It started with footage of Chloe and Michael kissing, followed by audio recordings of their derogatory comments about Ethan, and finally proof of her secret plans for Chicago. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked while exporting the final file. "There is no turning back once we send it." I looked at the screen where a frozen frame showed Chloe in Michael's arms, my future daughter-in-law, the woman who had convinced my son that I did not belong at his wedding. "This is not about revenge," I said firmly. "This is about giving Ethan the information he needs to make an informed decision. If he decides to go through with the wedding after seeing this, at least he will be doing it with his eyes wide open." Sarah nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "How are you going to send it to him?" "By email tonight when he is alone in his hotel room." Just as we were about to finalize the video, my phone rang. It was Ethan. "Mom!" His voice sounded strange, almost choked up. "I need to see you." "Right now, where are you?" "In Newport at the hotel, but I can drive down to New York." "No, honey, it is too late and you are tired. I can catch the first train in the morning." "Please, Mom, I need to talk to you in person. It is important." The panic in his voice alarmed me. "Ethan, what happened?" There was a pause, then a shaky sigh. "I think I have made a terrible mistake." My heart skipped a beat. "I will be there in 3 hours." After hanging up, I looked at Sarah with absolute urgency. "Something has happened. I need to go to Newport right now. Do you want me to come with you?" "No, it is better if I go alone. Ethan needs to talk to me in private." "What about the video?" I looked at the finished file on my computer. "I will take it with me just in case it is necessary, but first I am going to hear what Ethan has to say." I caught the last late-night train to Newport, my mind racing with worry. What could Ethan have discovered? Could he have seen Chloe with Michael? Or was it something entirely different? I arrived at the Golden Beach Resort just past midnight. Ethan was waiting for me in the lobby, pale and looking completely disheveled. When he saw me, he stood up and hugged me tightly, like he had not done in years. "Thank you for coming," he mumbled against my shoulder. "Always my sweet boy." "Can we talk in your room?" He nodded and led me through the quiet hallways to his suite. It was elegant and spacious with a balcony overlooking the ocean, but Ethan seemed completely unaware of the beauty surrounding him. "What happened?" I asked as we sat down on the balcony. The sound of the waves crashed softly below us. "I saw Chloe," he began. His voice was barely a whisper. "With another man." My heart stopped for a second. "When?" "This afternoon. She was supposed to be with her bridesmaids getting ready for tomorrow, but she forgot her phone in our room. When I went to take it to her, I saw an incoming message from someone named Michael." I closed my eyes briefly, knowing exactly what was coming. The message said, "I cannot wait to see you later. Our final celebration before you become a married woman." There was a kissing emoji. "What did you do?" I asked gently. I called her asking who Michael was. She told me he was an important client, that she had a quick business meeting. I told her I would go with her. She refused, of course. So I followed her. Ethan stood up, unable to sit still. "I saw her meet him at the hotel bar. At first it looked professional, but then they kissed. Not a casual greeting kiss, a real passionate kiss. Then they got into the elevator together. Oh, Ethan. I sighed, my heart breaking for him. I waited in the lobby for 2 hours. When they came down, they looked satisfied, happy. He left and she went back to her friends like nothing had ever happened. Like she had not just betrayed me the night before our wedding. Did you confront her? Yes. I waited until her friends were gone and I asked her directly. At first she denied it. Then when I told her I had seen them, she changed her tactic. She said it was just pre-wedding stress, that it meant nothing, that she loved me. And what do you believe? Ethan turned to me. His eyes were shining with unshed tears. I think I have been an idiot, Mom. A complete and absolute idiot. I stood up and hugged him, holding him tight, while years of manipulation and deception finally crumbled around him. I deeply regretted his pain, but a part of me was relieved that he was finally seeing the truth. What should I do? He asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. The wedding is tomorrow. There are 200 guests waiting. Her family has spent a fortune. I have spent a fortune. Ethan, look at me, I said, taking his face in my hands. Money can be recovered. Time can be recovered. But marrying someone who has lied to you, who has broken your trust even before your marriage begins, that is something that could cost you years of your life and a piece of your soul. He nodded slowly, absorbing my words. You are right. I know. It is just that everybody is going to be here tomorrow. How do I tell them there is not going to be a wedding? With honesty. You do not need to give all the details. Just say that you and Chloe have decided you are not ready to take this step. She is not going to accept it that easily, Ethan said, rubbing his forehead tiredly. She is already threatening to tell everyone that I listened to you instead of her, that you let your jealousy destroy our relationship. I felt a pang of pain at his words, but I was not surprised. Chloe had always been an expert at manipulating situations in her favor. Ethan, I have something to show you, I finally said. Something I have been putting together over the last few weeks. I opened my bag and took out my laptop. I showed him the video we had created, the proof of Chloe's affair with Michael dating back months, their derogatory comments about him and her secret plans for Chicago. Ethan watched it in silence, his face a mask of pain and betrayal. When it ended, he stared at the blank screen for several minutes. How long have you known about this? He finally asked, his voice strangely calm. I started suspecting weeks ago, right after you told me I was not invited to the wedding. Something just did not feel right to me. Sarah and I started investigating. Why did you not tell me sooner? It was the exact question I had been dreading. I was afraid you would not believe me. Chloe has spent years convincing you that I am controlling and meddlesome. I thought you would see this as a confirmation of her accusations, not as the truth. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that reminded me of his father. You are right. I probably would not have believed you. I needed to see it with my own eyes. We sat in silence, the sound of the ocean waves filling the space between us. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice firm for the very first time all night. There will be no wedding tomorrow. Dawn arrived with perfect clarity, the East Coast sun rising over the horizon like an omen of change. I woke up in the hotel room Ethan had gotten for me, feeling a strange mix of relief and apprehension. The night before, after making his decision, Ethan had called his future in-laws to request an urgent meeting. I had offered to go with him, but he insisted it was something he needed to do entirely on his own. It is my responsibility, he had said with a firmness that reminded me of the man he had become, not the boy I had raised. I chose Chloe. I proposed to her. I have to be the one to end this. My phone rang at 8 in the morning. It was Sarah. How did everything go? Is Ethan okay? He found out on his own, I replied in a low voice. He saw Chloe with Michael last night, right here at the hotel. Oh my God, what is he going to do? He has decided to call off the wedding. Last night he met with Chloe's parents to let them know. How did they take it? I do not know yet. I have not talked to him this morning. Just then, I heard a knock on my door. Sarah, I have to let you go. I think it is Ethan. I opened the door to find my son pale but composed, dressed in casual pants and a simple shirt. Not the attire of a man who was supposed to be getting married in a few hours. Good morning, I said, hugging him briefly. How are you doing? As you can imagine, he replied with a tight smile. Can I come in? We sat on the small balcony of my room overlooking the ocean that was now shining under the morning sun. I ordered coffee from room service and waited for Ethan to be ready to talk. It is over, he finally said. I talked to her parents last night. At first they were furious, but then I showed them some of the evidence you gave me. They could not deny it, and Chloe tried all the usual excuses, that it was a mistake, that she was stressed out, that she really loved me. When she saw that was not working, she changed her tactic. She started blaming you, saying that you had always been against our marriage, that you had probably hired a private investigator to follow her. And did her parents believe her? Not after I showed them the email about Chicago. Turns out not even they knew she was planning to drag me out there without consulting me. Her dad was especially disgusted. He said he had not raised his daughter to behave like that. Ethan stared out at the horizon where a small boat was sailing slowly. The worst part was when she finally admitted the truth. She said she loved me in her own way, but that Michael challenged her intellectually in a way I never could. That our marriage would have been comfortable and safe, but with him, she felt passion. I am so sorry, Ethan, I said, taking his hand. Do not be sorry. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. He squeezed my hand with gratitude. Although it is not going to be easy, the guests are starting to arrive. We have to announce that the wedding is canceled. How do you want to handle it? I have already texted my closest friends. They are reaching out to the rest of the guests. The hotel has been very understanding. They are going to help me organize a brief announcement for those who are already here. I was surprised by his efficiency and composure. This was not the indecisive Ethan who had allowed Chloe to dictate the terms of their relationship. This was a man who had faced betrayal and was taking total control of the situation. I am proud of you, I said simply. He looked at me in surprise. For canceling my wedding at the very last minute. For making all my friends and family travel for nothing. For losing thousands of dollars in non-refundable deposits, for choosing the truth over comfort, for valuing yourself enough not to settle for someone who does not respect you. That takes real courage, Ethan. He nodded slowly, seeming to consider my words. I guess so, even though right now it feels a lot more like failure than courage. Time will show you the difference. We spent the morning together helping to coordinate the cancellation of the wedding. Just as Ethan had predicted, some guests had already arrived and were completely bewildered by the news. Ethan met with them in one of the hotel lounges, simply explaining that he and Chloe had decided they were not ready to take this step. Most were understanding, although I could see the curious glances directed at me, especially from those who knew I had originally been excluded from the ceremony. Chloe remained noticeably absent throughout the entire process. According to one of the hotel staff, she and her family had left the resort early that morning, taking all their belongings with them. For the best, Ethan commented when I told him. I am not sure I could keep my composure if I saw her right now. In the afternoon, when most of the guests had dispersed, Ethan and I sat on the beach, watching the waves crash softly on the shore. The hotel staff was discreetly taking down the wedding decorations they had started setting up. What are you going to do now? I finally asked. Ethan sighed, skipping a stone across the water. I do not know. Go back to work, I guess. Look for a new apartment since ours is full of memories of Chloe. Try to rebuild my life. You can stay with me in the meantime if you want. He looked at me with a small smile. Do you really want a depressed 30-year-old man invading your space? I want my son close by, especially when he is hurting. Besides, my apartment is too big for just me. Ethan considered the offer for a moment. Maybe for a few weeks until I find something of my own. We sat in silence contemplating the horizon. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In some parallel universe, my son would be celebrating his wedding right now, dancing with a woman who did not truly value him. "Thank you, Mom," Ethan said suddenly. "Not just for last night, but for everything. For raising me, for guiding me, for never giving up on me, even when I pushed you away." "I would never give up on you, Ethan. You are my heart walking outside of my body." He hugged me then long and hard, like he had not done since he was a little boy. And as the sun set over the beach that should have witnessed his wedding, I felt that we were standing on the edge of a new beginning, one built entirely on truth and mutual respect. The train ride back to New York the next day was quiet. Ethan slept for most of the trip, emotional exhaustion finally catching up with him. I watched the scenery pass by, reflecting on the events of the last few weeks. Had I done the right thing? The answer was not simple. I had crossed lines I never thought I would cross, spying and gathering information in secret. But I had also protected my son from a marriage built on lies and manipulation. In the end, the truth had come to light not through my direct intervention, but because Chloe herself had been careless enough to continue her affair, even on the eve of her wedding. Perhaps destiny or poetic justice had stepped in its own way. As the train pulled closer to New York, Ethan woke up and looked at me with sleepy eyes. "You know what the strangest part is?" he said. "A part of me feels relieved, like a weight I did not even know I was carrying has been lifted off my shoulders." "That is the freedom that comes with the truth," I replied, "even when it hurts." He nodded, looking out the window at the approaching city. "I think I am going to be okay, Mom. Not today and not tomorrow, but eventually." "I know," I said, squeezing his hand. "You are stronger than you think." And as New York welcomed us back, I knew this was not the end of a story, but the beginning of another. A story where my son would no longer be under the control of someone who did not value him, where he could rediscover who he really was and what he truly wanted out of life. Sometimes the most important truths are the hardest to confront, but without them, we can never be truly free. A week after the canceled wedding, New York welcomed us with an unusual late spring heat wave. Ethan had settled into my apartment, taking over his old bedroom as if the last 15 years had never happened. It was strange, yet comforting to have him back under my roof. That Monday morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone, buzzing persistently. It was Sarah. "Ellen, have you looked at social media this morning?" Her voice sounded tense, urgent. "I just woke up," I replied, rubbing my eyes. "What is going on?" Chloe posted her version of the events. It is everywhere. I sat bolt upright, instantly wide awake. What did she say? "I will send you the links, but brace yourself. It is not pretty." Minutes later, with a coffee in one hand and my phone in the other, I stared in sheer horror at Chloe's post that had gone completely viral overnight. Under the title, "The Truth Behind My Canceled Wedding," she'd written a carefully constructed narrative painting me as a controlling, manipulative mother who had sabotaged her relationship with Ethan from the very beginning. "Ethan's mother never accepted me," Chloe wrote. "I tried for years to build a relationship with her, but Ellen always found ways to sabotage our plans. When we finally decided it was best for everyone if she did not attend the wedding, she hired a private investigator to follow me, fabricated evidence of a supposed infidelity, and convinced my fiancé that I was cheating on him." I kept reading my outrage, growing with every single word. Chloe had masterfully flipped the script, presenting herself as the innocent victim of a jealous, possessive mother-in-law. The most alarming part was that thousands of people were commenting, sharing her story, offering her support, and condemning my supposed behavior. Toxic mothers and justice for Chloe had become trending topics on Twitter. Ethan walked into the kitchen, his face grim. "I already saw it," he said before I could even speak. My phone has been blowing up all morning." "I am so sorry, honey," I said, feeling guilty despite knowing the truth. "This is exactly what I was afraid would happen if I intervened." "This is not your fault, Mom," he replied firmly. "Chloe is doing what she always does, manipulating the narrative so she looks like the victim. She has done it for as long as I have known her, only now I can see it clearly." His maturity genuinely surprised me. Just a week ago, he would have jumped to defend Chloe without a second thought. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Ethan poured himself a cup of coffee and sat down across from me. "Part of me wants to post all the evidence we have to show the world who Chloe really is. But that would just drag out the drama, and honestly, I am so tired of all this." "I get that," I said. "But I also understand that you want to defend yourself and defend me. What bothers me the most is how she is portraying you like you are some kind of monster. You who have dedicated your whole life to me, who have supported me through everything." His voice cracked and I felt a lump form in my throat. It was the first time in years I had seen my son so openly protective of me. "Ethan, I have been an educator for 30 years. Believe me when I tell you that the opinions of strangers on the internet mean very little to me. What matters to me is how you feel." My phone dinged with a text message. It was from an unknown number. "We know it was you. Delete your video or there will be consequences." "Look," I showed the message to Ethan, whose eyes narrowed immediately. "What video are they talking about? I thought you never posted it." "I did not," I replied, totally confused. "I only showed it to you that night. Not even Sarah has a copy." Ethan grabbed his laptop and started typing frantically. After a few minutes, all the color drained from his face. "Mom, look at this." He turned the screen toward me. On YouTube, a video titled, "The Truth Behind the Altar." "When Love Is Not Enough" had over 2 million views. It was our video, the one I had made for Ethan, but with a few differences. It had been professionally edited with dramatic music and added effects, but the core content was unmistakably the footage we had gathered. Chloe kissing Michael, their derogatory comments about Ethan, her secret plan for Chicago. "You did not post this?" Ethan asked. "Of course not. I only showed it to you." "Then who did?" We stared at each other, completely baffled. The video had been uploaded by an account called Matrimonial Justice, apparently created just a few days prior. The doorbell ringing interrupted our confusion. When I opened it, I found myself face to face with Rachel Vance Michael's wife. I recognized her instantly from the photos we had seen during our investigation. "Mrs. Miller," she said, her voice tight, "I am Rachel Vance. I think we need to talk." I invited her in, introducing her to Ethan, who looked at her with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "I assume you guys know about the video," Rachel said, sitting down on the couch. She was an attractive woman in her mid-30s with sharp eyes and a posture that radiated absolute determination. "Were you the one who posted it?" Ethan asked straight out. Rachel nodded without a single ounce of regret. "Yes, and before you judge me, let me explain why." For the next hour, Rachel told us her story. She had suspected for months that Michael was having an affair, but he always managed to deny it convincingly. Until one day, about 3 weeks ago, she spotted Ellen and Sarah following her husband away from the gym. "At first, I thought you were unhappy clients or maybe journalists looking into something about the business," she explained. "I followed you out of curiosity and watched as you took pictures of Michael and Chloe walking into the apartment." "Why did you not approach us then?" I asked. "Because I needed concrete proof, not just suspicions. So I hired my own private investigator to track Michael, and what he uncovered matched perfectly with what you two were documenting." Rachel explained that she had been keeping tabs on our movements, trailing us while we trailed Michael and Chloe. When she heard about the canceled wedding, she figured we had used our evidence, but then she saw Chloe's viral post portraying me as the ultimate villain. "I could not just sit there and watch that woman drag your names through the mud after everything she had done," she said firmly. So I hacked into your son's email the night the wedding was canceled, and I found the video you sent him. I edited it a bit and put it online." Ethan and I exchanged a look, stunned by her confession. "I understand that you are furious with Michael," I said carefully, "but posting that video exposed not just your husband, but also my son to incredibly painful public scrutiny." Rachel had the decency to look slightly remorseful. "I know, and I am sorry about that, but after seeing how Chloe was spinning the story, I felt the world needed to know the truth. Besides," she added, sitting up straighter, "I have already filed for divorce. The video is admissible evidence. Michael is going to lose everything." The sheer determination in her voice reminded me of myself just weeks prior, when I was dead set on protecting Ethan no matter the cost. "What are you planning to do now?" Ethan asked. "I already did it," Rachel replied. "I came here to warn you that Michael and Chloe are furious. They have been sending threatening messages just like the one you got this morning. I also wanted to thank you for giving me the truth, even if it was not on purpose. It could not have been easy knowing you were going to hurt your son with that information." After Rachel left Ethan and I sat in silence, processing everything that had just happened. "It is unbelievable," he finally said. "This whole time we thought we were watching Chloe, but someone else was watching us." "The universe has a funny way of delivering justice," I replied. Ethan nodded. Then he stood up with absolute resolve. "I am going to reply to Chloe's post." "Are you sure that might just keep the drama going like you said before?" "I am sure. I am not going to let her smear your name like that. I do not need to post all the evidence, but the world deserves to know you are not the villain in this story." And so, while the matrimonial justice video continued to rack up views, Ethan wrote a measured but incredibly firm response to Chloe's accusations, defending me and explaining that the wedding was canceled for reasons that went far beyond maternal interference. As the day went on, the tide on social media began to turn. People who had initially backed Chloe were now starting to question her side of the story. The hashtag #TheTruthBehindTheAltar started gaining traction, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of manipulation in relationships and celebrating those brave enough to pick truth over appearances. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was a reporter from Channel 7 News. "Mrs. Miller, I am Sarah Chen from Channel 7. I have been looking into the story about the viral wedding video, and I would love to ask you a few questions." I felt my heart drop. This was the exact moment I had been dreading when my involvement in this entire mess would be made totally public. "How can I help you?" I asked cautiously. "You are Ethan Miller's mother, correct? The groom from the video." "Yes, I am." "And I understand you were not invited to your son's wedding. How did that make you feel?" I looked over at Ethan, who gave me an encouraging nod. I decided to be honest. It made me feel incredibly sad. Every mother wants to be a part of her son's wedding day. "Did you know about your future daughter-in-law's extramarital affair?" I had no knowledge of Chloe's personal relationships beyond what I observed as Ethan's mother. "Some people online are speculating that you might have had a hand in creating or distributing that wedding video. Do you have any comment on that?" This was the moment of truth. I could lie, deny everything, and probably walk away without a scratch. Or I could own what I did and face whatever consequences came my way. "Sarah, let me tell you something about being a mother. When your child is getting hurt, your first instinct is to protect them. Sometimes that means stepping back and letting them learn from their own mistakes. And sometimes it means stepping in." "Are you saying you made the video?" "I am saying that sometimes the truth needs a little help making its way to the surface." Sarah's eyes went wide. She had just struck gold. "Mrs. Miller, are you admitting on camera that you created the viral wedding video?" I thought about Ethan sitting in his old bedroom right now, slowly rebuilding his confidence and his sense of self. I thought about Rachel Vance finally breaking free from a lying husband. I thought about all the comments on that video thanking matrimonial justice for exposing the truth. I am admitting that I love my son enough to make sure he knows the truth about the person he was about to marry, even if that meant risking my entire relationship with him. Even if that meant publicly humiliating his fiancée. Chloe humiliated herself. I simply documented it. The interview aired that very night. By the next morning, my phone was ringing off the hook with calls from talk shows, podcasts, and documentary filmmakers. Justice Grandma was trending on Twitter. Opinion pieces were being written left and right about maternal intuition, wedding ethics, and the true price of honesty. Some people called me a hero. Others called me vindictive and downright cruel. I was simultaneously celebrated and condemned sometimes by the exact same people. But Ethan had my back completely. "You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life," he told the reporters camped out outside our building. My mom saw what I was way too blinded by love to see. Chloe, meanwhile, had packed up and moved to Chicago to take the job she had been plotting for all along. Michael was living in a tiny studio apartment and working at a different gym after his wife took him to the cleaners in the divorce. The video now had over 50 million views. Matrimonial Justice had basically become an internet legend, even though everyone knew it was actually me. And I felt something I had totally not expected: peace. For the first time in 2 years, I was not walking on eggshells around my son's girlfriend. I was not pretending to like someone who treated me with pure contempt. I was not enabling a relationship built entirely on lies and manipulation. The truth had set us all free, even if that freedom came with a heavy price tag. 3 weeks after the media circus life was finally starting to settle into a new normal. Ethan had gone back to work, though, at a different company, refusing to step foot back in Miller marketing. He was going to therapy every week and had started reconnecting with old friends that Chloe had systematically pushed away. One sunny Sunday afternoon, we were having coffee out on the patio when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Chloe standing in the hallway looking drastically different from the confident woman I used to know. She was pale with dark circles under her eyes, dressed very simply, entirely missing her usual display of expensive designer labels. "We need to talk," she said, walking right into my apartment without an invitation. "Come on in," I said to her, retreating back. Chloe paced back and forth across my living room like a caged animal. "You have completely destroyed my life. My job forced me to take a leave of absence. My family refuses to speak to me. Michael's wife is taking everything in the divorce and naming me as a co-respondent. I am sorry you are going through all this," she whipped around. "You are sorry because I think you planned every single second of this. I think you hired someone to trail Michael and me. I think you orchestrated this whole thing just because your feelings got hurt." I sat down on my couch and motioned for her to do the same. She stayed standing, practically vibrating with anger and desperation. "Chloe, let me ask you something. If the roles were reversed, if Ethan had been having an affair and I had hard proof, would you want me to tell you?" "That is not the same thing. Is it not you made choices? Those choices came with consequences. That video did not invent your affair or your lies. It only revealed them. You do not get it. Michael and I, it is complicated. Ethan is sweet, but he does not challenge me. He does not push me to be better. Michael does." "Then you were marrying the wrong guy." "I was marrying a good man. That should be enough." I studied Chloe's face, catching something I had never noticed before. Underneath all the anger and desperation, there was genuine confusion. She actually believed she could have both lives: the safety of a marriage with Ethan and the thrill of an affair with Michael. "Chloe, did you love Ethan when you were getting ready to marry him?" "Of course I did. I do. I love him." "Then why did you ban his mother from your wedding?" She finally sat down, her composure completely shattering. "Because you see too much. You ask questions. You make me feel like I am never good enough for him." "Are you?" The question just hung in the air between us. Chloe's carefully constructed walls were crumbling in real time. "I do not know," she whispered. "I thought I was, but being with Michael made me feel alive in a way Ethan never did. And I thought I could have them both, that nobody would get hurt as long as I was careful. Somebody always gets hurt, Chloe. The only question is who and when. I never meant for it to go this far. The affair was supposed to end right after the wedding. Michael was supposed to be my last taste of freedom before settling down into married life, but it did not stop. It just got stronger. And then the job offer in Chicago came up, and it felt like a sign, a way to start over, maybe even find a way to be with Michael eventually. I felt an unexpected flash of sympathy for this young woman who had made such wildly destructive choices. Chloe, you need to be completely honest with Ethan about all of this. He will leave me. Maybe. But if you keep lying, you will absolutely lose him. And you will lose yourself too. She stared out my window for several minutes. The video. Can you make them take it down? I cannot. And even if I could, screenshots exist. It is already out there. So I am ruined. My career, my marriage, my reputation, all because I made a few mistakes. You are 28 years old. You are only ruined if you choose to be. But you have to stop blaming everyone else and start taking responsibility. Chloe walked out without another word. Through my window, I watched her sit in her car for 10 minutes before finally driving away. That night, Ethan called me. Chloe told me about her conversation with you, about Chicago, about Michael, about everything. How are you holding up? I am filing for an annulment. Turns out when your wife has been planning to uproot your entire life without telling you, it legally counts as fraud. Relief washed all over me. I am so proud of you. I need to apologize for everything, Mom, for letting Chloe treat you like garbage, for shutting you out of the wedding, for doubting you when that video dropped. You've never been anything but supportive, and I let her convince me that you were the problem. You do not ever have to apologize for loving someone. But I do need to apologize for picking her over you. You have always been my biggest supporter, and I let her convince me that you were the problem. Ethan, what truly matters is that you see things clearly now. I do, and I see that I have the absolute strongest, smartest mother in the world, someone who taught me that actions have real consequences, even when I completely forgot that lesson. What are you going to do now? I am going to move back home for a little while, if that is okay. I need to figure out who I actually am when I am not trying to be whoever someone else wants me to be. Your room is exactly the way you left it. 3 weeks after the wedding that practically broke the internet, I was out grocery shopping when a young woman approached me in the produce section. "Excuse me, are you Ellen Miller?" My heart totally stopped. Had someone pieced together the connection between me and that viral video? Yes, I am. I am Sarah Chen from Channel 7 News. I have been digging into the story behind that wedding video, and I would love to ask you a few more questions. It was the moment I had been dreading. I am not sure how I can help you. Well, you are Ethan Miller's mother, right? The groom from the footage. Yes, and you were not invited to your own son's wedding. How did that make you feel? I looked at this young reporter, probably around Chloe's age, absolutely starving for her big break. It made me feel terribly sad. Every mother wants to be there on her son's wedding day. Did you know about your daughter-in-law's affair? I had no knowledge of Chloe's personal relationships outside of what I observed as Ethan's mother. Some people online are speculating that you might have been involved in creating or leaking that wedding video. Any comment on that? This was the moment of truth. I could lie, brush it off, and likely walk away clean. Or I could own what I did and face whatever the consequences were. Sarah, let me tell you something about being a mom. When your kid is getting hurt, your first instinct is to shield them. Sometimes that means backing off and letting them learn from their own failures. And sometimes it means stepping right in. And are you saying that you made the video? I am saying that sometimes the truth just needs a little push to get to the surface. Sarah's eyes practically bugged out of her head. She had just hit the jackpot. Mrs. Miller, are you admitting on camera that you created the viral wedding video? I thought about Ethan crashing in his old room right now, slowly piecing his confidence and his life back together. I thought about Rachel Vance finally shaking off a cheating husband. I thought about all the comments on that video thanking matrimonial justice for dragging the truth into the light. I am admitting that I love my son enough to make absolutely sure he knows the truth about the person he was about to marry, even if it meant risking my relationship with him, even if it meant publicly humiliating his fiancée. Chloe humiliated herself. I simply documented it. The interview aired that exact same night. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with calls from talk shows, podcasts, and documentary crews. Justice Grandma was trending on Twitter. Op-eds were flying around about a mother's intuition, wedding ethics, and the brutal price of the truth. Some folks called me a hero. Others called me a vindictive, cruel woman. I was simultaneously praised and trashed sometimes by the exact same people. But Ethan had my back completely. "You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life," he told the reporters swarming our place. My mom saw what I was way too blinded by love to see. Chloe, meanwhile, had packed up for Chicago to take the job she had been plotting for since day one. Michael was stuck in a tiny studio apartment working at a different gym after his wife took him to the cleaners in the divorce. The video was sitting at over 50 million views now. Matrimonial justice was basically an internet legend, even though everybody knew it was actually me. And I felt something I never really expected: peace. For the first time in 2 years, I was not tiptoeing around my son's girlfriend. I was not faking a smile for someone who treated me like absolute garbage. I was not propping up a relationship built entirely on lies and manipulation. The truth had set us all free, even if that freedom cost us dearly. 6 months after the media nightmare life had fallen into a brand new rhythm. The hype around the video had died down, although every now and then some reporter or documentary producer would hit me up for an interview. Ethan had scored an apartment of his own not too far from mine and was absolutely thriving at his new job with a top-tier architecture firm. Therapy was helping him process not just Chloe's betrayal, but the behavioral patterns that had made him such an easy target for her manipulation in the first place. One afternoon while we were having coffee out on his balcony, he caught me completely off guard with a question. "Do you ever regret it, Mom digging into Chloe, making that video?" I chewed on the question for a second. "I regret the pain it caused you. I regret that you had to go through all that public humiliation. But no, I do not regret going after the truth." Ethan nodded, staring out at the New York skyline from his balcony. "Me neither. At first I was so mad, not just at Chloe, but at you, too. It felt like you completely robbed me of making my own choice." "I know, and that was my biggest fear. But I get it now. It was never about control or revenge. It was about making sure I had all the facts I needed to make a genuinely informed decision." "Exactly. My therapist says I was stuck in a loop of pleasing everyone else at the expense of my own well-being. That I let the people I loved, especially Chloe, call all the shots because I was terrified of losing them if I ever stood up for my own needs." "That sounds pretty accurate," I said gently. I had watched Ethan do that since he was just a little kid, always so desperate to keep everyone happy, especially after his father walked out. I am learning to set boundaries now, to say no, to demand basic respect. I am so incredibly proud of you." Ethan smiled a genuine, easy smile that lit up his face in a way I had not seen in years. "I actually met someone," he said, almost shyly. "Oh. Her name is Lucy. She is an art restorer over at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We met at an architecture conference last month. She sounds fascinating." "She is. She is smart, independent, incredibly passionate about her work, and she is different from Chloe. She does not try to change me or manage me. She just seems to appreciate me exactly as I am. I would love to meet her. I said sincerely. "I have already told her all about you. She is completely mind-blown by the whole video saga. She says you are her absolute hero." I laughed, shaking my head. I am nobody's hero, just a mom who did what she thought was best for her kid. Sometimes that is exactly what a hero looks like. Driving back home that afternoon, I thought about just how drastically our lives had shifted over the last 6 months. The scandal, as agonizing as it was, had been a total cleanse in so many ways. It dragged out ugly truths that desperately needed to see the light of day, not just about Chloe, but about the deeply ingrained habits in our own mother-son dynamic. Ethan was growing up, maturing in ways I honestly never could have pictured. He was finally learning to value himself, to demand honesty and respect from the people in his life. And I was learning to actually trust him to make his own calls, even while that gut instinct to protect him was still screaming in the background. Sarah called me while I was sitting in gridlock traffic. "How is my favorite nephew doing?" she asked. "Better than ever. He actually just told me about a new woman he met." "Oh, give me all the details, please." I told her all about Lucy, and Sarah let out a huge sigh of relief. Thank God. It is about time he found someone who actually deserves him. "It is still really early," I warned her, "but it feels different this time. He seems different." Of course he is. He walked right through the fire and came out stronger on the other side, all thanks to his fierce dragon mother. "Sarah." "It is a compliment, Ellen. Not every mother would fight the way you did. Plenty of them would have kept their mouths completely shut, even knowing the whole ugly truth, just because they were terrified of losing their kid. You took a massive gamble and it paid off." Her words brought me a lot of comfort, but they also reminded me that this whole mess could have easily ended in a total disaster. Ethan could have totally turned on me and chosen to believe Chloe. I could have completely lost my son while trying to save him. "Have you heard anything about Chloe?" Sarah asked, pulling me out of my head. "Not directly. From what I hear, she is doing fine out in Chicago. Her family's business is expanding and she is running the new office out there. And Michael, according to Rachel, he is trying to patch things up with his kids. Apparently losing everything in the divorce was a massive wake-up call." "The sheer power of that video," Sarah muttered. "The sheer power of the truth." I corrected her. That night, while I was eating dinner alone in my apartment, my phone buzzed with an unexpected text. It was from Ethan. "Lucy really wants to meet you. Sunday lunch." I smiled to myself as I typed back. I would absolutely love that. Maybe this time it really would be different. Maybe this time my son had actually found someone who valued him for exactly who he was, not for who they could mold him into. Or maybe not. But either way, Ethan finally had the tools to spot the difference. And I would be right there watching and supporting him, but trusting him to navigate his own path. Summers in New York are always brutal, but this year felt especially suffocating. Or maybe it was just the sheer anticipation of watching my son walk down the aisle for the second time this time with a woman who genuinely respected and loved him. A full year had passed since the massive wedding video scandal. The whole ordeal had been milked for countless articles, true crime-style podcasts, and even a Netflix documentary called Mothers Who Saved Weddings. I had been interviewed so many times I totally lost track with every single journalist, fishing for their own unique spin on the mother who nuked her son's wedding by exposing his cheating fiancé. But today was not about digging up the past. It was all about the future Ethan was building with Lucy, the brilliant art restorer who walked into his life right when he desperately needed a reminder of his own worth. Their relationship had blossomed over the last year, moving at a really healthy pace, built entirely on mutual respect and totally open communication. Unlike Chloe, Lucy never tried to change Ethan or keep him on a tight leash. She accepted him exactly as he was, with all his strengths and his flaws. And unlike the last time, there was zero question about whether I was invited to the wedding. In fact, Lucy had practically demanded that I be her honorary maid of honor, a role she completely made up just for me. "If it were not for you, Ethan and I would never have even crossed paths," she had told me. "You deserve a place of honor." The ceremony was going to be small and incredibly intimate, set in a gorgeous botanical garden just outside the city. Just close family and tight friends, no massive spectacle or showy nonsense. As I was getting ready in my apartment, meticulously picking out my dress and jewelry, my phone buzzed with a text from an unsaved number. "Congratulations on your son's wedding. I hope this time it is forever. See Chloe." My heart skipped a beat. I had not heard a peep from her in months. The last update I got was when Ethan finally received the official annulment paperwork. I was not entirely sure how to respond, or if I even should. Ultimately, I decided to keep it incredibly simple. "Thank you. I wish you the very best as well." A few seconds later, another message popped up. "I actually mean it, Ellen. This past year has been educational. I am in therapy. I am working on myself. Thank you for forcing me to face my own demons, even if it had to happen in the absolute hardest way possible." I stared at the text message for several minutes, genuinely taken aback by how authentic it felt. It looked like Chloe, in her own twisted way, had managed to find some peace after the hurricane she caused. I am really glad to hear that, Chloe. We all deserve a second chance, even cheating brides and meddling mothers-in-law. I could not help but smile, especially us. Good luck today. Tell Ethan. No, do not tell him anything. Some stories are just better left in the past. With that surprisingly thoughtful exchange behind me, I pulled up to the wedding feeling incredibly light and full of hope. The gardens were stunningly decorated with wildflowers and soft, delicate string lights. Ethan was waiting nervously under a gorgeous rose arch, looking so incredibly handsome in his navy blue suit that it instantly reminded me of the little boy he used to be, always so thrilled about his next big adventure. When Lucy appeared looking absolutely radiant in a classic simple white dress, the look on Ethan's face said everything I ever needed to know. It was love, absolutely, but it was also deep respect, admiration, and an overwhelming sense of peace. It looked absolutely nothing like the frantic, anxious energy he constantly carried around with Chloe. During the actual ceremony, Lucy caught everyone completely off guard by throwing a special shout-out to me right in the middle of her vows. And I promise to always honor the extraordinary woman who raised you, who taught you the absolute value of the truth and the meaning of real courage, even when it is incredibly painful. Your mother has taught me more about what real love looks like than any textbook or romantic movie ever could. Tears immediately welled up in my eyes as Ethan looked over at me with the most grateful smile. At the reception, while I was sitting at the head table right next to the newlyweds, Sarah leaned in close to me. Who would have ever guessed we would end up right here when we kicked off our little surveillance operation a year ago? Life really takes us down some crazy paths. I replied, watching Ethan and Lucy glide through their first dance, their foreheads resting against each other as they swayed softly to the music. "Do you regret any of it?" Sarah asked. I thought about the question really seriously. This past year had easily been one of the most chaotic years of my entire life. I had crossed boundaries I swore I would never cross. I had been publicly dragged and publicly praised. I had put my entire relationship with my son on the line for what I knew deep down was right. "No," I finally said. "I do not regret a single thing. Sometimes the truth burns everything to the absolute ground, but sometimes that is exactly what needs to happen, so something new can finally start growing." Sarah nodded, raising her champagne glass in a quiet toast. Later on, while I was sharing a dance with Ethan, he held on to me a little tighter than usual. "Thank you, Mom." "For what, honey?" "For everything. For raising me. For refusing to give up on me even when I shoved you away. For teaching me that real love is not just about the romance and the passion, but about absolute honesty and respect. I just wanted you to be happy, Ethan. That is all I have ever wanted for you. I know, and I am Mom. I really, truly am. As the party kept buzzing all around us, I felt an incredibly deep sense of closure. The circle was totally complete. My son had finally navigated his way into a healthy, genuinely loving relationship. I had reconnected with my own strength and resolve. And somewhere out there, Chloe was finding her own path toward the truth and toward healing. Sometimes the most vital truths are the absolute hardest ones to face. But without them, we can never experience what it actually means to be free. Watching Ethan and Lucy dancing surrounded by everyone who loved them, I knew for a fact that the truth, no matter how brutal it was the greatest gift I could have ever given my son. And that when it comes down to it, is exactly what mothers do. They protect their kids, not from the truth, but with the truth.